Sexuality is a lot of fun to think about historically, but it can also be really difficult and really painful. And there are a lot of difficult stories. One of the documents that we read in one of my classes is called The Life of a Slave Girl. It's a very famous slave narrative written in the U.S. And she recounts her experience under slavery and exposes what it was like for women. So at that time, a lot of stories had been written by men, but she talks about the unique experiences of women. And of course, women were, you know, sexually assaulted constantly. That was part of the system. It was just an assumed part of the system, both by their owners, but also forced to procreate with other enslaved men. So it's a challenging book to read. It's also a pleasure to read because she's so clear in her criticism and so lucid, and so you really see someone, fighting back against the system and exposing it. Anyways, one year when I was teaching it in tutorial, I wanted to check in with students. How are you feeling? Because it's such a hard book to read. And one of them said, did anybody else have to stop constantly? I constantly had to stop and put it down because it was just too hard to read. And I was really moved by that. But then another student immediately followed that comment by saying, I felt like I couldn't put it down. I felt like she survived what she survived, and I had to stay with her, and I couldn't stop. And I love that moment because it showed me, first of all, how deeply engaged students were with the text, but also that we deal with things in very different ways, both of them equally valid, equally meaningful, but very different. And I think both of them were probably quite transformed by reading that text too. So that was a moment I'll never forget.